Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. A bunch of mega fans giving you the news discussion and, of course, a lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the Cosmere. I'm Eric, and joining me is Evgeni.
Hello, I'm Argent.
What's this? What are you doing?
I don't know.
Okay, cool. Also joining us is Grace.
Hello, I'm Gator Girl.
I always like you try and match Evgeni's energy. I appreciate that.
I also do this on Diceboard that trust this is nowhere near as unhinged as Diceboard intros.
That's true. Are you sure you're not a Kandra though? Just trying to mimic. Also joining us is Shannon.
Hi, I don't have a bit, but I'm gray.
Hey.
I enjoy the energy though.
Hell yeah. And I am Chaos, and we're going to talk about more Words of Brandon from Nexus. And so we're just gonna get to the grind, peoples. Evgeni, open us up. Jesus Christ.
I will open all of you up with this question from Questioner.
Demonetized immediately.
Just instantly.
Gotta be more careful. It's the second episode we're recording one after another. The second episodes are always more loopy, guys. That's the fact. Right,
But
Grace?
we should have already been open.
Yeah.
Question from Questioner.
Yeah.
Who was curious if there was a broad reason why cell magic systems are more location-based, or Scadrio, you can move around a lot?
Don't worry about that second part. I don't know.
Okay, sure. I don't know. Cell's a big oddity, which we knew, right? Cell's highly warped by the way the power of the...
You missed a thing. You missed a phrase. Important.
I missed the important
There
bit of
is
the
actually an
question.
important thing here.
So, Cell is the big oddity. There's a few other instances like this, but Cell is highly warped by the way the power of the two shards that were destroyed on Cell. What happened with them distorted a ton and messed everything up. And the system has been self-corrected in order to make certain things function. You shouldn't expect what's on Cell to be the standard, though it is not the only one like that.
So, obviously, for longtime listeners, you probably are well aware. It's because the two shards got shoved in the cognitive realm, and that's the door. I think the part that's interesting to me is there's a few other instances like this, which is like, okay, probably not shardic level, but probably location-based magic systems.
Yeah.
Interesting how the system has been self-corrected in order to make certain things function. I would say those are the interesting in kind of new parts. Like, I don't think we knew that before.
No, and I'm not quite sure what that means.
I mean, I can spitball if you want.
So, spoilers for Wind and Truth, right? We mentioned this last time.
There are going to be Wind and Truth comments that we have. We just can't stop ourselves.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The way the Tanavast flashbacks are written, it seems like the splintering of Devotion and Dominion happened very early post-Shattering. It is difficult to say exactly how early, but the first flashback opens with Tanavast arriving on Roshar 10,000 years ago, and ends, or almost ends, with Tanavast sensing what appears to be Shardic conflict out there in the Cosmere, which I interpret to mean the splintering of Devotion and Dominion. Because he notes like multiple shards. Oh, and it goes, oh, are they dying? And then Cultivation is like, no, let's stay here. Don't worry about that.
Okay, this is important Wind and Truth stuff. Okay, yeah, sure. Relevant.
And so that first flashback doesn't need to all happen at the same time. We are in the mind of a god. And then the next flashback is, I think, 8,000 years ago. And so I think there is a little bit of wiggle room for that first flashback to be, anywhere from a few moments to up to 2,000 years ago. I don't think it goes quite up to 2,000, but I can accept like a few centuries or like up to 1,000 years.
Yeah, I would say like it could totally be over a span of 1,000 years. Yeah, for sure.
So the reason I bring that up is to like provide context for what may have been going on Cell before Reyes went there and did whatever it is that he did. So presumably, Aeona and Sky went to Cell kind of almost immediately in the same way that the Ten of Est did with Roshar, and they could have established a magic system just by investing in the planet.
Yep.
And that magic system could have likely was broken by Reyes splintering the shards and shoving them in the metaphorical closet.
Yeah.
And it is this, but now obviously we do have magic on Cell again and have had that for a very long time. And so I think that may be the self-correcting thing that we are talking about here. Magic kind of found a way to continue working in some capacity.
There's this interesting aspect in Elantris, which obviously we've all read very recently ago. We obviously, all of us here. That's sarcasm. I haven't read it in ages.
Read Elantris every week.
Yeah. Probably haven't read it since the anniversary came out, which is 10 years ago at this stage, and I don't like that.
Don't tell me that.
I know. I'm
No.
sorry.
Forbidden knowledge.
Forbidden. Because there was this aspect of like Raoden, like the power building up in him, you know? And then
Yes,
he
every
drew the
time-
Aeon, and then there's like a release.
Well, so that was because he was practicing Aeons,
Mhm.
and every time he drew an Aeon without the chasm line, the power of the door, like the way Aeons work is you draw the thing and the power of the door comes out of the shape that you have drawn. But because the chasm line was missing, not all of the power could fully like express itself.
It was building
And
with
so
him.
every Aeon that he drew contributed to this buildup of pent-up energy. And so when he finally did draw one with the chasm line, it was extra juiced up.
Yeah, I think there was like some mythology in what Galadon was saying, which we all remember off the top of our heads.
I mean, he talks about like the door being like the
It's like the
life.
thing that makes everything like move, right? It's like it's like
Yeah.
this metaphysical, like the reason why things move, why things fall, things like that. And I'm wondering if there was like similar to with Raoden having this pressure buildup, that there was like this pressure buildup in the cognitive realm from these shards. And like the magic has to express itself to kind of release some of it a little bit. And so like it's this aspect of like this is this super dense stuff and it's trying to push out. Or it's maybe more like this. It's this super dense stuff in the cognitive realm that's very powerful and very energetic. And it's just going to find ways to wiggle out, I guess. You know?
I can actually kind of see that. And so I think one of the ways that can express itself is in a lower barrier for access
Mhm.
to the magic, because it wants out. So normally if it's in this abstract spiritual realm stuff, you need like these formalized bonds or procedures or other like formal ways of accessing the magic. But if it's all in the cognitive realm and wants out, then you have all of these easy ways of accessing it,
Yeah,
right?
you can just anywhere that has a stable population, as we talked about in the last WoW episode, could easily have this magic and develop along those lines. And it doesn't need to be a huge thing, although you do need to have the presumably whatever genetic or spiritual genetic requirements. To
Initiation's weird, right?
Initiation's weird. Sheod is especially weird. So anyway, that's what I think. That's what
Okay.
I think.
I
Welcome to the show.
don't know
Sorry.
if I really followed that, but
Welcome to the WoW episode. Hey.
I also kind of had a different. Just was like this. I had a visualization in mind.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know if I'm wise to do this, but my eyes caught on the words "by the way that the power of the two shards was destroyed," not just that they were destroyed.
Sure.
So I'm imagining when you break down things into component parts, I'm imagining the way ice shatters. It segments off. And the way that frozen water is different than liquid water, it has this hexagon shapes, and it tries to like group into hexagon shapes. And I'm thinking about the way like little structures try to piece themselves together, and they make like blocks. The way that ice does, that's a lot different than other forms of water. So I'm imagining like little ice crystals trying to clump up with each other. And it's just, I think the concept of like them being destroyed the way that they were with the whole idea of location means extreme segmentation, which I find very interesting. It does make me more curious to get a closer look on Cell and see like how many different clumps could you possibly get? Like if you divide up a nation, like say like we're splitting up, we're 2 countries now. Could those 2 then develop their own thing? I just think it's very interesting the way how it's almost fluid, even though it's very rigid. The way that it has to function.
That's the other side of the coin that we talked about last time, which was, if you had a bunch of states that come together, what happens to the magic? Now, well, if you have a single nation that splits, what happens to the magic?
Self-correction to make certain things function. Are the magics on Cell less functional than other places with whole shards? And that's also an interesting question that I'm not sure I know how to sort of explore that idea with the knowledge that I have, but I think it's an interesting question to me.
I mean, it's impossible for us to know what Cellish magics looked before Devotion and Dominion broke. There's no way of knowing this.
Yeah, I'm just curious to know, like, are there missing things that should be there? Are there bugs in the code? To say it another way, I'm interested in that, and I'm very curious about Elantris 2 and 3. I'm actually quite excited for them upcoming in his schedule. Yeah.
It's got to be important.
Mentioning bugs in the code, it reminds me that Aeondor is in some ways like programming, in that you write programs, you write Aeonic equations, and they do a thing to reality. And that reminded me of how powerful Aeondor is, in how you can seemingly do anything with it as long as you can figure out the right program for that. And that made me think about limitations imposed on magic systems and the potential lack of limitations on Cellish magic systems.
Kind of like how Honor is enforcing certain restrictions.
Honor has been enforcing like we know that stone shaping is limited because if it's left unchecked, it can start encroaching into microkinesis territory. We know that others like unbound surges are dangerous because they can. The Knight's Radiant can be as Dawnshards or whatever the hell. Sure. But like we have multiple instances of Honor limiting power to mortals, and there's no one, maybe the Surges under Shar are uniquely powerful, and that's one of the reasons that that's why that this has to be the case. But maybe all invested arts have the potential to be this powerful, and shards impose various limitations on them, and there is no one on Cell to impose those limitations, and that's why we have something as powerful as Aeondor.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
What's interesting to me is, and I'm going to go back to the Badali jewelry lore a little bit.
Yeah, excellent. Good.
This
Early Elantrian Empire.
That the original Elantrians found this city already built.
Yep.
And I think there's been some questions to Brandon before about like the idea of like, was that a shard who built it? Was it similar to like the Dawn cities and how it was created? And it's just interesting to me because we don't know how it was created, and I do think something like a shard would make sense to have created it, but that couldn't have happened if the location, the need for this to be shaped like the country happened after the shards died. Then the shard could not have created the city, right? Does that make sense?
It is possible that pre-splintering, like pre-door magic, was also location specific, but intentionally so. So like the shards could have gone, hey, this region, here is how the people here are going to access the magic. Because we also know that aeons predate the splintering or the shards.
Do we know that?
I don't remember which one it was. Well, because Elantris it's an...
We know that?
Maybe we don't. But it has been like, there are these arcane bits of Elantris lore that live not even in the back of my mind. But regardless, it is possible for the shards to have like made location-based magic in some capacity.
Yeah, it's just, it never seems, whenever people ask what the reason is that there's location-based magic, it's always like, oh, well, it's in the cognitive realm, right? Like the stuff's in the cognitive rather than the spiritual. So like, I feel like the original Celis Magics did not. I think there could be, how about this instead? Instead of location-based, it is based in symbols of some kind. And like,
sure,
it is not actually location-based. And maybe there was like a universal like symbol thing that you could draw upon these two shards in probably some end positive way. Am I right? That totally useful categorization that we get, obviously. It's not useful. So I think it'd maybe be more like that. Like, I don't think there's any indication that the location aspect was before they were splintered.
Yeah, it's just weird that, you know, Aeon matches the loose shape of Eidolon, and that's a component of Aeon Rio, which is a component of Elantris.
Well, I think that all came later, you know?
You think the city was created after the shard? How do you think the city was created then?
I don't know, man. I don't know how much King Reoshem lore is going to be involved in the Elantra sequels. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I think when Brandon researches the Elantra sequels, I'm not sure he's going to read the Aeon pendant lore that he wrote. But, you know, I don't know. Maybe he'll go through the Elantris glossary he wrote back in those days, where it's like there's some questionable things in the Elantris glossary, if I remember right. This is all like very old fandom lore at this stage. So I'll be honest, I have no idea how Elantris was made. That's a great question. I have absolutely no idea. All right, Grace, let's talk about another one that Brandon totally misheard the answer, misheard the question, which is totally fine, but it's amusing nonetheless.
This questioner asked, could a sufficiently advanced Skybreaker or Dustbringer use the Division Surge to forcibly split a Nahal bond? Brandon responded, so what you're talking about is something in the Cosmere that's called microkinesis. It's a possible manifestation of base Cosmere surges, and it's about as dangerous as you imagine. A sufficiently trained and invested Skybreaker or Dustbringer probably could do it. It has been done, but not by them during... So yes, fission and fusion are part of the magic systems. They call it microkinesis. But yeah, so you can read about that in Dragonsteel Prime. It's in there, but they are the same surge.
Brandon heard nuclear rather than Nahel. So, yeah. Nuclear bonds, which, yeah, sure.
I think post-Wind and Truth, this sort of trail off about how they're the same surge and they've been used, but not by them during ... I think that's getting at Ashen and the destruction of Ashen being like Division creating nuclear bombs.
Yeah, so this is a mild. It's related, but there's a reference to fire smithing in Wind and Truth that the Heralds talk about, and so I believe.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Well, Vettel is not a firesmith.
There you go. That's what we know. But I think Firesmith is like the proto name, like it's proto Dustbringer, Like it's this proto-division use. Kind of like how bond smithing would be like this connection use. And so I think
else calling is,
maybe they called fire smithing whatever this use of the division surge is. And that turned out badly.
Nail probably was a firesmith.
That is actually badass to think about. Nail as a firesmith.
I guess we don't know that, right? But
we don't know that. No, we absolutely don't know that.
Because I think he was skilled in else calling, so it's fun to think of the heralds as not restricted to the surges that we traditionally associate.
It is wild, just because Ishar made a big else skate, right? Like that's what he did. So we got to do. We'll do an episode where we less our Oath Pact episode where we talk about new stuff, but we have a lot of Herald stuff to talk about in this book and the history of Roshar, and we need to talk about that because it is wild.
I know, like, I think it's one thing to think of, like, Ashen was destroyed by surges unchecked, and it's another thing to think, like, Ashen was destroyed by nuclear bombs going off on the entire planet everywhere at once.
Yeah. I mean, I believe some scientists in the Manhattan Project were worried that when they launched a nuke that they would set the atmosphere on fire.
Yes.
So, I think that's what Brandon's going for, where it's like, yeah, so we did that, actually. So it's like, oh, okay.
Because you can set off, theoretically, you can set off a chain reaction that is self-perpetuating and just obliterates the atmosphere.
Yeah, but they still have the atmosphere, so that's interesting. But it's it doesn't sound nice there, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly turned the planet into a hellscape, right? It didn't technically destroy the planet, but it's the next best thing.
Technically, the planet still exists.
Yes,
but not well.
Do we think you can use division to break Nile bonds?
Oh, to actually address the actual question?
To answer the question that Brandon did not?
No.
I don't think so.
No,
this doesn't sound...
I think you need to be.
I don't think so either.
Completely different.
Yeah,
Bondsmith.
I think, one, the Spren and person have too much choice that it would be very difficult to do anyways.
It'd be really hard.
And two, you would need like Bondsmith powers if anyone could do it.
Yeah.
But even then, I think from what Brandon has said in previous things, like, the Spren and person involved have too much choice that forcibly breaking a Nahal bond would be very difficult.
I mean, Ishar thought he could steal the Stormfather bond of Dalinar, so I mean, like, I think it is theoretically possible, but like he's
not a reliable source.
That's he's not a reliable source.
But he's the only sane herald left.
Also, I'm realizing as we talked about this and reading the question, I misheard at Nexus. I thought Brandon was saying, no, obviously I would never put fission and fusion in my magic systems. That's too powerful. That would be wacky. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, and now here I'm reading this like, cool, I guess.
Well,
look at that.
I mean, that's kind of the thing with Stormlight. It's like, well, I did, and it turned out badly for them. When you don't know what you're doing.
doesn't mean I'm not doing it. Like, I thought he was like, I'm not writing that. He did write it.
I guess
he did write it.
This is an interesting point where when Honor's dead, right? Dead. So Honor was never splintered the entire time.
Well, the limitations on the magic that Tanavast imposed are gone.
Sure. I feel like that's what he was kind of worried about with the Radiance destroying Roshar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just it's interesting with Retribution, is what I'm saying, is that now there is a vessel for that power, right?
And he may choose to reestablish some of these protections if he wants to.
So it just...
I think post-Wind and Truth, I lean towards Honor actively putting those protections in was mostly a thing at the start, and a lot of the Stormfather's conversation about like surges unchecked was him being scared. Like, I think the Rosharan magics were built to be less powerful than the surges on Ashen, and it's not really that much of a concern unless you have like a Dawn Shard.
I wonder also if Retribution is planning on opening the door specifically off planet. You go off planet, and now I'm taking a leash off.
Yeah.
When you go and be my soldier in my war, it's like, here, have some extra magic, have some extra power, and now you can do more things.
Or for those who are loyal to him.
And then you come back home for your rest cycle, and then you lose the ability to make nuclear bombs.
That's extremely cool. Trying to persuade Radiance over, like, yeah, I will give you so much power. Like, not a problem, because none of the oaths that like restricted, like none of that applies anymore. So Retribution could totally be like, yeah, all right, you want to be very powerful Knight Radiant with no more restrictions and just infinite light? Sure, sign me up, fight my war for me, and I'll do it. Like he could 100% do that. Well, that's super fun, guys. That's so good. The Cosmere's in a great place now.
True power of the O.
That was my takeaway on why Retribution is like such a cool and threatening villain, is because he's very hands-on in a way that Honor just kind of wasn't. Yeah. Honor was like setting the leash, and I'm gonna dip in and out. We saw his flashbacks. Tanner kind of sucked.
Well, he was hands-on on Ashen, and we saw how that ended up.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the thing. Right.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the lesson he learned. It's like, oh, when I go hands off, people don't use surges to kill each other anymore. That's strange.
To some degree, but there was an aspect of like he keeps doing this thing where he looks away for too long, and it's like, oh shoot, I looked away for too long and they went crazy. Now I have to step in and fix it. Whereas I think Retribution is a lot more, I'm with you every step of the way. I'm going to be micromanaging everything, which is sort of his condescending, patronizing, well of control business.
Well of control. Hell yeah. We gotta have well of control.
That clicked for me immediately, because I was well of control. He's so micromanaging, condescending. He's a patronizing guy.
Totally made sense to me as well. I think
perfect.
The only thing that was weird is then it's like, oh, I'm off Roshar now. I was like, what? Like,
yeah, he's gonna have to play some catch up a bit, but I don't know where he's gone or how long he's gone or.
But I agree. When he comes back, he's gonna be that, right? I 100% see that, and I absolutely think he is going to try and seduce some Radiance to the dark side. Why wouldn't you?
I mean, he's their god now. I mean, what would it be like to be like, Honor's our guy for so long, and then it's like, well, I guess Retribution's our guy now.
You're getting me very excited for the back half, because I think one of my issues in our contest episode is where I was like, I just don't know what our story hooks are going to be, right? I
can come up with so many. Oh my god, I can come up with so many.
Yeah, I think I'm just like stuck in like the front five like aesthetic of just like, oh, we got to stop the desolation, and it's like, well, we lost, and so I'm just like, how are things gonna roll and go crazy? Because I could totally see a path. It's just mini Wind and Truth episode. What's up, guys? Who cares? Where we have like
what they want. They really want it.
They do.
We need to go back to Wobbs.
We will. Just a second. But just like Teravangian's hands-on, but then it leads to like massive destruction, and then it's like, oh, maybe being this hands-on is maybe bad. So that's all I wanted to say. Anyway, Shannon, why don't you talk to us about the Bands of Mourning? How about that?
Well, this one's going to make me mad, too. Okay.
Great. Perfect. Good. It's going to make us all mad, really.
Or annoyed. Questioner, is it possible that the Southern Scadrians could have pulled some kind of shenanigans to convince the North that the Bands of Mourning were drained when they were actually not drained? Brandon says, yes, that's possible.
Good talk.
Was that not the takeaway? Wasn't that scene just so weird and truncated? Isn't that supposed to be the takeaway, that there were shenanigans? That's my takeaway. It doesn't need to be
this exact variety of shenanigans.
I think it's like, is the shenanigans someone drained the Bands of Mourning for some reason, and we don't know who or when? Or is the shenanigans someone made people think the bands were drained when they weren't actually?
Sure. Yeah.
Or were the bands swapped, or what have you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, in that case, we could just come up with anything and it doesn't matter till we find out. Because I think we're going to get an answer.
I mean,
hence, yes, it's possible.
Hence, yes, it's possible.
After Lost Metal, I'm like, we could do a Bands of Mourning episode, and now it's like, no.
Sure, there was shenanigans, I'm sure. There was very...
Yeah, probably. For sure. Wow.
They got bum rushed through that.
Wow.
Oh, no.
Incredible. Cool, let's talk about our good pal, Taln.
Friend of the channel.
Yeah. Friend of the channel, Taln. Taln Elin. Never broke. What's up, man?
He's a long-time Herald on Patreon.
He is. Very long time. That's true.
He's been supporting us for thousands of years.
Thousands of years, yes. Questioner asks, we know that Taln has amazing willpower, so it's kind of a two-parter. What Herald had the weakest willpower that allowed the Desolations to become so short? And what is the difference between that Herald and Taln that allowed them to have... Brandon, I'm going to Raffo this because I'm going to delve into some of these things in upcoming books. So you get a Raffo card. But the idea is, let's focus more on how awesome Taln is and less on how... Right? I would say all the Heralds really tried. And the whole way the system was set up was designed to break them. Not by intent, but I think focusing on who broke the most is maybe the wrong way to look at it, rather than holding up and saying, wow, why did this guy not? And he's got a book coming up in the back half where we'll find out a lot about him.
So, I am a pretty firm believer that in the back half we are going to find out that Taln did not break because he is incapable of breaking. That, like, the form of insanity that Taln has, left him either he is so focused on keeping his oaths that he can't break them even if he tried, or he's, so broken that he's too, incapable of having the intent to do something like break his oaths. I think we're going to find out that it's not like this guy is so great that he just had willpower to withstand torture for thousands of years. I think there's more to it than that.
Hey,
he was being tortured for a secret that he didn't have. This is a metaphor, but he's being tortured for a secret that he does not possess and cannot give up.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. No, I like that metaphor. This is significantly more interesting than, wow, this guy's so awesome, in a sense. I have a magical compulsion where I cannot do this thing. And so I will take the route of complete insanity because it is impossible for me to do the other thing. Honestly, you know what that reminds me of? Dawnshards a little bit. With Hoyd's compulsion to, I cannot commit this violence, in a sense. I don't know if Taln had a Dawnshard, but it just reminded me of that, of these magical compulsions that would
yeah, I mean, it's investiture regardless of I do there are interesting ideas here, right? One, you need to be of sound mind to let the fused back in, and maybe he lost that. Two, I like the idea of, and I don't know if that's what you were going for, Grace, but it's at least adjacent to it, that but people didn't know that he was holding back the Desolations is the thing, right? I was going to say, I like the idea that the collective Rosharan perception of the Bearer of Agonies gave him strength to resist this, but that perception did not exist. I did wonder if the shift in the Oath Pact, so it resides mostly on him, could have had some effect.
That would be really interesting to see from his POV.
It bolstered him in some capacity or protected him in some capacity. And I don't want to take away from, the hashtag Taln Never Broke and, the fan club and all of that. But 4,500 years is a lot of years.
Yeah.
And so I do think there has to be something more going on, whether it is magical protection, whether it is, well, he is not capable of opening this door because he's lost it.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I'm glad there's going to be, like, obviously there's going to be stuff going on with Taln, but this is an interesting question that Brandon's like seeding in, where it's like, why did he not break? You know, maybe it's part of the reason he tried to kill cultivation or something, or some effect of that. Who's to say?
Yeah, that's a thing that now exists in the world.
It is apparently so.
Maybe she cursed him.
I mean, that could be possible.
That'd be sick.
That
like
would,
a wound from trying to kill a guide.
That would
imagine if you can't feel pain.
That would actually be so sick to see cultivation doing things in Herald flashbacks, like thousands of years before we see like cultivation's current machinations. Just like, what does that mean? That's interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I would love to see a capable cultivation.
Hey, I think she'll be back. She'll be back with the rest of the Shardic Coalition with Valor.
My experience with this topic is more just shaded by how much of a conversation in the fandom that doesn't matter to me at all. Taln never broke. Cool. That's awesome. I also, it just kind of flows over me like water. I'm like, oh, did we not know that? Did we not think he did? I don't know. What's going on here? To me, this is so irrelevant for the moment. But it's one of those like things, like when you're in a fandom too much, sometimes one little argument just gets stuck in your craw and you're like, this is nothing to me. Or the opposite. Or the opposite. Now this is a really big deal when it would have been fine. And now I'm like, I see this everywhere. This is totally everywhere. This conversation is everywhere. I'm going to head down and wait until the book talks about it.
Well, I mean, that is certainly the case in fandom, right?
I know there are some people, I know this for some people have the same, like, this is Chana Devar to them. But to me, this is, Taln never broke is my Chana Devar. I'm like, all right, come on, let's go.
I'm just waiting for, like, I think Brandon will, like, turn it on its head where we go from, like, whoa, Taln never broke to, like, Taln never broke. Like, just, like, the vibe shift of, like, that. I think, I think that's what it's doing.
I actually think that's incredibly interesting storytelling-wise. Like, that will make being in Talon's head and things very interesting. So that's very exciting.
I do expect some heartbreak in his flashbacks.
And if we don't, Brandon's not doing his job right. Like we gotta suffer. Yeah. We have to bear the agonies he suffered.
Or the sufferer.
Yeah. Evgeni, let's talk about another Herald thing.
Oh, I love Heralds and black holes. So, what would happen if one fell into the other? Specifically, what would happen if a Herald fell into a black hole?
Yeah.
Although I guess the other way around also works.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. It's about frame of reference. Anyway, right. Brandon provides some interesting ideas here, saying investiture is going to respond to a black hole, maybe not in exactly the same way as light and matter, but in a similar way. It's going to crush them, hold them in, hold them. Their soul will probably still be, there'd be some cognitive remnant in the cognitive realm, depending on how the black hole is manifesting there, which we haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah.
So, what would happen? Halle Berry, X-Men, the same as everything, whatever.
Yeah.
Basically the same thing that happens to everything else. The question is, would their immortality remain? Yes. Asterisk.
The return of Asterisk. Nice. What does that mean? Who knows? Yeah.
This is such a fascinating question that I don't think I have seen. I mean, surely someone has brought it up at some point, right?
Sure.
But it hasn't been a big discourse, and it's really interesting, right? One, black holes in Shadesmar, do they, like, the sun, the stars don't seem to exist in Shadesmar in the same way, or at least we haven't seen any, except for Shadesmar's own like little sun, but that's not, the solar system stars.
I'm just imagining a bead that's just like a supermassive black hole bead, and you manifest it, and
you manifest it, and Shadesmar is gone.
Roshar. It's very funny to me. Should not have touched that bead. That was not the right galactic bead to pick.
All I'm thinking is that, God, I hope that cognitive remnant isn't conscious, and that's all I think I got.
Yeah, that's
but it's like
cognitive remnant.
You can completely obliterate a herald's physical body, and their cognitive aspect is still around. It is still just fine. Like, it gets pulled to Braze. And is able to reincarnate just fine. But yeah, I guess if their investiture also gets sucked in, but then they wouldn't be immortal. There's no asterisk to that.
Do you think? Let's play a game. What is better or worse? Herald being tortured on Braze, or Herald not being tortured but in a black hole for eternity?
Better for who? For the Herald?
Yeah, for the Herald. Yeah. Let's play a game.
Would you rather experience?
I think it's black hole. Give me a clean death.
Well, but you might be
assuming that you die.
Yeah, you might be coherent and being spaghettified the entire time.
I don't think that's spaghettification. You're dead.
Cognitive spaghettification.
Cognitive remnant.
No, you're dead.
Because I'm wondering how the black hole manifests. Like, physically you're in the same spot and you can't move. Like, would you be able to walk away from it in the cognitive realm?
That's wild to think about. That's so
crazy.
Interesting, right? Because you're right. Celestial bodies should not appear in Shadesmar, but if they're going to show up, if a black hole chowed down on a bunch of people that were conscious,
I don't think
the event horizon is their thoughts. Yeah.
This is my question, and this is going to be terrifying.
Okay.
If the black hole consumes, like, sucks in enough investiture, could it be invested enough to, like, become a perpendicularity and pierce the realms?
I don't think any of that works that way.
You don't think so?
If a black hole eats investiture, I think it's not the same as being investiture. I'm thinking about dark matter now, and how dark matter isn't like a real thing that we've defined. It's just a word a term we came up with because there's something out there we don't understand, and it doesn't match all the other.
It's placeholder matter.
Properties that we understand. Like, it's a placeholder term for.
It's placeholder. It's not place. Yeah.
And I know we understand what a black hole is, but like, the way that Brandon has said this, as if it's going to interact with investiture and pull it in the same way, it's powerful enough to do that. As soon as you get like this cosmic, like, maybe the fact, like, is a Herald's investiture actually as strong as a star, and stars get eaten by black holes like all the time, or they can't win against a black hole, or a sufficiently big enough one?
Yeah, we should check Taln in the sun first to find out.
Like, if it's a black hole that's like the center of a galaxy, I bet you that Herald is not coming back to consciousness ever.
No, that I absolutely agree with. Yeah, for sure.
The center of a galaxy black hole may be too big for them to even like start reforming and splat.
I mean, look,
I like space stuff. Is that coming through in these episodes?
I love this. Maybe you're gonna really love the sci-fi Cosmere stuff. Actually,
I wasn't sure I was going to be into it because I do prefer fantasy to sci-fi, but these are really interesting questions.
It's like, how does the magic interact with a black hole? I
like when cosmic matter starts intersecting with plot character things. Like, what if someone suffered? Oh, that sucks. But it's a black hole's involved, so now I'm like, ooh.
I mean, I don't really understand how black holes work in real life, so once you add investiture to it, I'm just like, it sucks it in like it sucks everything else in, and then it's gone. I don't know the details. Like,
does investiture interact with gravity? Like, have we seen?
It does. Canticle presumably is highly invested and has a weird gravity. But like, yeah, there's a gravitational.
No, but that's concentrated investiture manifesting a gravitational field.
Okay.
I'm talking about have we seen which, we know that like highly concentrated investiture warps space-time.
It's all related presumably by equations that Brandon has.
But also black holes.
Well, like, that's because
time.
We as humans don't have a unified theory of quantum gravity. Is the problem.
Or even a GR investiture,
So, if a big enough black hole, like if its gravity pull is sufficient, I imagine investiture is not special. If there's not enough of it, it's going to get sucked in the same thing as everything else.
But it's not matter though.
But it's something.
It's equivalent
he says
to matter.
He says, what did he say? Not exactly the same way as light and matter, but in a similar way. So it won't treat it in exactly the same, but Brandon is putting investiture in the same category.
Yeah.
So he's saying Cosmere black holes affect everything in the Cosmere in the same way that our black holes affect everything in our universe.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, I like this because what I like about... I like space opera like Star Wars, and I like harder science fiction like The Expanse for two totally different reasons. And one of the reasons I like The Expanse's style is that there isn't really a magic win when you're talking about interacting with space and space matter and all these really big things that you can't just overcome with the power of wishing really hard, like the Force. I love Star Wars. Don't even get into it with
It's very different.
But but what I like about this is that this says to me that it's going to be a kind of science fiction in the later Cosmere where they're going to have that kind of creative scientific spirit towards these phenomena, and they can't just dodge things like black holes or just because, I'm invested. And that kind of thing. Like I like that it doesn't seem like there's a little cheat code around some of these bigger problems people have to solve when it comes to space.
I got it,
which
guys.
I like that idea. Oh,
I got it. No. I got it. I have a solution to the Cosmere.
Oh, I also have one. I wonder if we have the same solution.
Chuck Adonalsium into a supermassive black hole.
We did not have the same solution.
I was thinking chuck the shards into black holes.
Yeah, well, I started with shards, but then it's like, I mean, we could. Why stop
my
there?
solution was the Cosmere is a star cluster, and it's possible that there are just no black holes in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are smaller black holes; those can form.
Yes, they can form, but we don't need to have any.
You know what I was wondering.
It's cool if we do, and Brandon likes having cool things in the books.
Oh yeah, Brandon's gonna do cool space stuff in the space opera. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. My thought. So you may not know this, but black holes will eventually evaporate. Actually, with Hawking radiation.
Hawking radiation,
but like not like the supermassive black holes. That will take way too long. Like the universe will be dead by then. Heat death, basically. But you could have a smaller black hole. So what if a Herald got in a smaller black hole and Hawking radiation dissipated? What's that Herald going to be like after there?
Dead. Hopefully dead. Hopefully dead.
This is the real questions. There we go.
I think that is not unlike what happened with Jezrien.
I don't know about that.
I think
I don't know about that. Oh, but you're like saying they're death mechanics.
Yeah, so like yes.
Oh, that's
because,
actually kind of interesting. Yeah, that'd be another way of severing the Oath Pact for sure.
Yeah, just chuck a Mo in a black hole.
Easy. Easy peasy.
Yeah, like trapped in a gem. He had no valid connections to the physical realm, and so his I guess most of his soul kind of went into the beyond. And like was destroyed. Like there was still something in the gem, but it was less of a soul and more of a just investiture.
Yeah.
So
it's maybe
not
like
even
that. Yeah. Okay.
Not even a corpse, but like the material that like the corpse turned into.
Okay.
Dust.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be a corpse left.
Yeah.
There was nothing left that was identifiable as a corpse. But it was like a pile of decomposed investiture is how I think of him.
Oh, I see. Okay. I was in the wrong visualization. I gotcha.
And so I think if you chuck a Herald in a black hole, maybe, and like there's no definitive answer, right? Because Brandon hasn't decided, or at least I don't think he has decided based on the way he's...
It's going to be treated like light and matter-ish.
Yeah, sure, which we fully understand like what happens.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the pictures. They're very cool.
We don't know. Once we go past the event horizon, we don't know. We just have mathematical models that we
still like the idea of an entire civilization inside the event horizon of a black hole, and that has a reflection in the cognitive realm, and so you can talk to them that way, but not in the physical realm.
I'm trying to troll. Obviously, we go to another time and place because that's what happens in all the movies.
Yeah, in Interstellar.
Yes.
We saw it in the documentary Interstellar.
Well, but
that's how you do the Cosmere time travel.
Past the event horizon is love.
That's where devotion went.
She's in the black hole. Odium, Race, you should have just chucked the other shards into a black hole. What an idiot.
What an idiot.
He's
an absolute moron.
These vessels, Anyway, we should probably move on because this is the big swap we've done
this
in
is
an
very
hour.
Interesting, but very interesting.
We've done 5 wobs. Our record has never been worse.
This is actually terrible.
I mean, I was going to say they've been dense, but they haven't been. We've just been using the wobs as an excuse to talk about tangential things.
I believe that's why some people in the Shardcast chat were like, I really like wob episodes because you just gotta go in a direction. And I'm like, well, got you covered, Chief.
Well, at least we think that if we go in a direction, we won't spawn a Sebastro.
Yeah. And if you don't know what that's talking about, see our last episode.
Next question.
Let's talk about Larkins.
This questioner said, I love Larkins and I want to understand more about how they work.
Me too.
And so I was wondering, can they consume all types of investiture? And what do they do with the investiture that they consume? Yes, they can consume all kinds of investiture. And they use this for growth.
So
basically,
like
they store it away, and they are waiting for a time when they will go pupate. And they will come out bigger, and then bigger, and then bigger, and then bigger. Their growth is not linear, and this is one of the ways that we're justifying for myself how we're getting to some of the size of the various great shells that exist on Roshar. So you'll find that getting to that state either requires long periods of time, which some of them just take a long, like centuries, and some of the species they use investiture. Chasm fiends use investiture in order to get to the size that they get to, and Larkins do the same. Before you ask, chasm fiends cannot eat investiture the way that Larkins do. They get it a different way.
Out of control. Something weird.
Yeah. Something weird with Odium's perp. But I do like that connection, right? That's and this is only a slight tangent, but I do like that we get to see, the answer to the mystery of why do the chasm fiends like have to go to the Shard. Well, they have to go there because that's where the apparently. So I guess what Brandon is saying is great shells like the Taina, right, the Ereshi Isles, probably just get this big over centuries. They don't require
that's
investiture.
Probably true.
They do require the Spren bond with the Mandras, so they don't like crush themselves. But they don't pupate and come out bigger. Larkin and Chasm friends.
Friends.
Hey.
Yes. They do pupate, and in the act of pupation, they use the investiture, either that they have stored or that they are like actively pulling out of the perpendicularity, if that is what is happening, to emerge larger.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I don't know if I have a lot of thoughts, but I think that makes a lot of sense. That's what's happening. That Chiri's got to eat a lot of investiture. And then
I'm
she's
ready
gonna get big.
to see a full-grown one. Yeah, I'm ready to see a full-grown Larkin now.
Dragon Wasp.
I mean, all that stuff is like clearly back half stuff from like Amia weirdness, and like we are never getting it in like these first 5, right?
I'm ready now.
I'm ready.
6 more years. Is solely so Chiri can grow to be full size.
I'm
That's
cool with that. Sounds amazing. Does Risen even need a ship when she can just have a full-size Chiri flying through Shadesmar?
But that's for the future.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Watch Risen and Chiri not even be in Stormlight back half because they're somewhere else now.
Oh yeah, I do think they're gonna be.
It did kind of sound like that, but that would kind of suck because we always have a Risen interlude. I don't know. Anyway, we'll talk about it in episodes at some point.
I hope so. Because, I mean, didn't the Dawnshards that were just on Roshar that she left to avoid not there anymore? I don't know.
That's true. That is a fair point. But the Sleepless are like, I'm out of here.
I mean, Retribution's there.
Yeah. They clearly have some fortune shenanigans. It's like, it's time to go.
The time of yeetening has come.
Let me dip. And I guess it's implied she got out before the time dilation.
It must be, yeah. But hard to say. Right?
We'll see.
Just in time. We'll find out.
All right. Let's talk, Shannon, about some mechanics. Hey, that is not what? Star System mechanics.
It's a fact I didn't know before. So, and that I actually have the context to understand I didn't know this before.
Hey,
so let's go.
There we go. Nice.
Questioner. If you encase a gemstone in aluminum, will that prevent or only greatly reduce the speed of stormlight leakage? Brandon says, yeah, the stormlight will still leak out of the gemstone. Assume that you're like creating a perfect shell for it. The stormlight is still eventually just going to make its way into the spiritual realm. The aluminum can't act as a stormlight containment necessarily unless the stormlight is persistent enough that it's not just evaporating into the spiritual realm. So, for instance, you could use some sort of device like this to encase a sapient Spren who is already locked into the physical realm. But Stormlight's just eventually going to evaporate due to Stormlight evaporation, which is changing realms. The aluminum's not going to stop that. And I don't know what you guys knew already. I didn't know that Stormlight just evaporated. That it wasn't.
It goes in the spiritual, yeah. Mm-hmm.
There we go. I didn't know that. And I understand that you guys knew some stuff. But to me, I was like, oh, that's fun and interesting new information.
Yeah.
But
I mean, yeah, it's interesting, right? Because like the gems go done, right? At like weird rates. Like bromes take a long time, chips don't take that long to go done. And like, where does that stuff go? And that stuff goes into the spiritual realm, right? And like, there's only certain things that can contain stormlight in a sense. Like humans can contain it, like radiants can hold it for a bit, but they're not a great container. Gemstones can do that and they hold it better. Perfect gemstones, theoretically, forever.
To me, I was like, oh, on some level, I didn't really understand that the leakage wasn't just the physical. Like,
it is interesting because it looks a little bit physical. It looks a little bit visual, right? And you can't really see that with gemstones because it takes, multiple days for the stormlight to evaporate. But you can visibly see the stormlight evaporating off of a surge binder as they hold it, right?
Right.
And so there is this kind of intuitive and apparently mostly incorrect understanding that it's evaporating just like water might be evaporating, in that it goes from being inside the container, whether that is the physical body or a gem, into kind of the air, and then it like stays in the air as like little stormlight atoms and molecules and stuff. But that is not the case, right? So it looks like it has a physical component, but involved in that is also a realmatic transition. And so one thing that is interesting to me is what happens. What does it look like? So you grab Kaladin and you put him in. You stuff him full of stormlight, and you shove him in an aluminum coffin that is exactly the size of his body.
Black hole. No, just sorry.
And as the coffin is still open, you can see the stormlight like rising from him into the air. What happens the moment you close the coffin? Assume like full, like airtight. It is like his shard plate, but it's made of aluminum. And I think what happens is the stormlight will continue to evaporate into the spiritual realm, but it will not penetrate the aluminum encasing.
Yep, that's what I got from it.
Yeah,
it's like you're going to open it up later and find out, oh, it's gone.
Yep, that's exactly correct. But it is interesting that like you could have like a gem with a Spren, and like the Spren would be there because it's like holding the investiture there in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Rather than just directly like, it's kind of this ephemeral thing.
Because I was thinking about the end of Wind and Truth with the Adolin fight. He's not able to summon Maya in from the cognitive realm as a blade in the aluminum encased room.
Mm-hmm.
Or even communicate with her, right?
Yeah. Kind of interesting.
Which is, hold up. That is a realmatic transition. Why can Stormlight escape from the physical into the spiritual, but Adolin cannot summon Maya from the cognitive into the physical?
Spiritual mumbo jumbo.
At the speed of plot. Things happen at the speed of plot.
At the speed of plot.
Spiritual mumbo jumbo.
If I had to make a guess, it is the nature of Stormlight as being porous and easily leaving things. Like, even by investiture standards, Stormlight escapes things like gems easily and things, like compared to like breath, which sticks to people. I think it's kind of a similar thing of like Stormlight is designed to cycle through the realms in a way that makes it easier to slip through small holes that might just be in. Yeah.
I could believe that.
That doesn't quite strike true with me.
I mean, I do think Void Light would work exactly the same way. Just
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. I think if anything, I might look for an answer, a justification, really, in like the fact that Maya, she is not just raw investiture. She is a being, right? And so to pull that being through the realms, that is the kind of thing that aluminum can block.
And I also think I think there is a thing in the Cosmere where the spiritual stuff is stronger than some of the cognitive stuff. Like when you're in an aluminum box, it's not like your spiritual connections are like blocked.
Sure, right? Yes. Spiritual mumbo jumbo is more powerful than cognitive mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, we've established this on the show, guys. and in Wind and Truth, it has established it hard here. Cool. This next one is from Adam on Shardcast, our good friend Axe. Would Anti-Stormlight be harmful to any of the Dawnshards? Brandon, Dawnshards would be more dangerous to the Anti-Stormlight than the Anti-Stormlight would be to the Dawnshards. I mean, that checks out, for sure.
Yeah, as soon as you say it. That's so sick.
Yeah. Dawnshards are really, really overpowered. That That Dawnshard interlude was wild in this book. Like, what is happening here? I don't exactly understand. Like, is it an aspect of the Dawnshard, like kind of how Sigzil Sigzil's just able to kind of like eat up investiture and stuff? Is it kind of like a Dawnshard would just eat it up, that investiture, and it doesn't care if it's Stormlight or Anti-Stormlight, and just be like, no, give it to me, you know?
I think that is possible. I think the Dawnshard, or potentially all of the Dawnshards, we don't know.
Sure.
Being able to consume investiture is one specific manifestation of the powers of the Dawnshards, which like they are the 4 fundamental commands that, and I say fundamental, that's not in the text, but it's how I think of them, right? It's the 4 commands that allegedly made everything, and also the 4 commands that killed God. And so if you have that much power at your disposal, if you are an entity that is that powerful, then anti-investiture falls within the domain of the things that you can influence. Whether it is to consume that anti-investiture, whether it is to potentially flip it back into regular investiture, whether it is to convert it to a different kind of investiture. Like, this is like the Dawnshards are the literal god mode of the Cosmere.
Rysn is using herself to just transition Stormlight to Anti-Stormlight. She's like, I can change it. Just that's what she can do.
In the same way that there was a question about, and Brandon has, I think, given different answers to this, but there was a question about whether a bondsmith unchained might be able to unite the pieces of honor.
Yeah.
Which was obviously pre-Wind and Truth. And
shocking, no need, actually.
Part of Brandon's answer was, oh, well, like, how would you use the power of honor to, like, unite honor?
Yeah.
Like, that's... And so there's a little bit of that, which is, well, is there anything in the Cosmere that can affect the Dawnshards when the Dawnshards are the thing that created the Cosmere, in a way?
The Aethers claim to be separate from Adonalsium.
The Aethers
are liars.
Can claim whatever they want.
I don't believe them. I just wanted to, you said everything's part of Adonalsium, and they claim not to be, so...
Yeah.
Dawnshards are immune. The Aethers are immune to Dawnshard action.
Sure, let's see how that goes for them.
Let's put this to the test. Evgeni, this next one is absolutely crazy to me. For just
it's wild. I'm really surprised that we got this.
This is wild. Anyway, read it please for me.
There's a question that doesn't really matter that talks about it mentions the City of Storms, which is actually the City of Lightning, and the City of Shadows, which are 2 cities that are just mentioned in Kaladin's
The City
past.
of Lightning is, Grace, Kurth?
Oh, Kurth? I'm sorry, I do not remember that title.
How dare you?
Why are you throwing this to me, Eric?
Betrayed by Kurthcast.
Shannon, do you know what we're talking about with Kurth and Grace?
I never watched the Kurth episode.
There's a whole episode on Kurth and the Oathgate there.
I'm getting the impression I should go and watch the Kurth episode.
It's actually pretty great, actually.
It is unhinged as all hell.
That's good.
But yeah, so City of Lightning, City of Shadows, do they exist? What's up with them? And Brandon says that Rall Elorim is the City of Shadows. Those who know your really deep cuts, Book 4 was going to take place there.
What?
And it just did not work in the outline. But the original outline, that line was there because someday he, Kaladin, was going to go see that. City of Storm, City of Lightning, we can ignore that. Rall Elorim, we did take the story that because most of Rhythm of War stayed the same, it was just going to be there instead. you will find some references to it in the RPG, in the Cosmere RPG. We repurposed my world building there, and we are going to let you have fun there in the RPG.
Oh, this is crazy. Lifts from Rall Elorim, right?
Yeah, first thing I need to do as the audience stand-in is go to the Coppermind and look up Rall Elorim.
Yeah.
It is a city in the mountains of northern Erie.
Yep.
And it is the most populous city in the nation. It is known as the City of Shadows for cryptic reasons. And it contains an oath gate. So that's actually pretty sick.
And so does Kurth, by the way.
It is, have heard tales that characterize it as an exotic, mysterious land. Okay, so Lift doesn't have great memories of this place, so maybe we're not getting the real good view on Rall Elorim.
We gotta get some flashbacks there, though. We gotta.
I hope so. I hope so. Eerie, okay.
Yeah, but just bonkers that Rhythm of War could have taken place there.
Presumably that means all the Urithiru stuff, right? Because Brandon's saying Kaladin. Like,
Kaladin was going to go there.
Yeah.
I guess maybe there would have been something about like unlocking of old gate. So Rhythm of War, as we got it, was about reactivating like the siblings' protections. Maybe there was a different version of that plot that was like either protection nodes were around the world where the other oath gates were, or maybe the whole protection nodes was just not a thing, and like the plot was going to be about activating all of the oath gates in some way.
You know, there's not a lot on this Coppermind page. I can't even begin to fathom what's in Rall Elorim that could take the place of Urithiru.
I don't.
Is just an oath gate.
Especially when it's about waking up the sibling. Like, how are we going to do that if we weren't? What?
I think maybe this is getting at, like, Brandon had cool world building ideas at Rall Elorim and wanted to show it, and then he sat down and was like, I don't have a good plot for this city. Like, is maybe?
Yeah.
Like you're saying, like, the plot was about trying to come up with a plot to take place of activating Urithiru. Maybe it's just like there was no plot that took that place, and that's why he changed it. But he had cool world building ideas.
Yeah, it was just like in a line in his one pager that was just like Kaladin goes to Rall Elorim and does Rall Elorim stuff, and then in Urithiru, then like the siblings activated and things.
Well, the siblings activated.
Engage.
Yeah,
and then also, but there's a big plot about like we can't let the sibling be transformed or whatever. Enlightened. We can't let the sibling was awake, or. Yeah,
I am not putting that much stock in like specific plot points having taken place in Rall Elorim. I think it's like
maybe it's just Die Hard in Rall Elorim
there, and it just he just didn't know what actually cool thing that would be when he sat down to write it. And
if you're gonna say Kaladin's gonna do is a cool Die Hard plot, but it's like what is he defending or what is he
like? It's something that like I would love, which I'll never be able to, but I would love to like just pick Brandon's brain of like, okay, what was the original insane outline for this? Because I think maybe like what Brandon was thinking, if Oathbringer takes place a lot in Urithiru, then like we got to show different locales. Because Brandon's probably thinking, oh, I'm blowing up the world in book 5, so I mean, hey. And just like, yeah, I guess I can't do it. But like, I just don't I guess Urithiru, Oathbringer wasn't primarily in Urithiru, but it was kind of our home base. So I don't know, it's kind of
We might just have to revisit this once we get the RPG books. Maybe come back to this question.
Maybe, yeah. I just... What was in Brandon's crazy outline that we're just like, yeah, it was going to be totally different in this, and then it just didn't work at all? Like, that's what I want to know. Like, what was the original plan? Was Race book 5? What? How?
I mean,
that's wild.
For all we know, this like original Rhythm of War outline was when like Seth's flashbacks were still book 3, and we were doing,
that's true because he was saying,
and we were doing Shinovar stuff in like Rhythm of War or whatever.
Yeah, when he says the outline,
sure.
Like.
Yeah. It can mean a lot of things. To say in the outline, well, like what outline? I'm sure he had a bunch.
I would
throughout
kill
the
to
ages.
read what his outline was for the first 5. That's just
The
totally
OG.
different.
The OG.
Yeah.
Anyway, what my takeaway is, I'm going to read the RPG book and watch Kurthcast. Other than that, I think I got nothing.
Both good takeaways.
I think Kurth is one of those episodes where we're just like, wait, what? Why is the Oathgate there? And just going down just all the rabbit holes. It's really Shardcast classic, where we're just like, wait, what? In Oathbringer time where we don't know too much, because now we know a lot,
Not about Kurth, we don't.
Not about
Kurth. And I wonder also maybe if this sounds like it might be a downer ending, because the only thing else on the Coppermine page is that Rall Elorim in Eerie is in Odium's zone now.
Yep.
It's so
it wasn't
like what.
Yeah.
If there was any kind of like protection plot, like Kaladin loses and has to like retreat back to Urithiru but successfully saves Urithiru, and like maybe it was like, no, I need a bit of a win before book 5, maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe it's like I can't do downer 3 in a row.
Oh, no, not with Kaladin.
Yeah,
we can't be so mean to John Stormlight.
Kusikesh was not there, right?
No, that was Cassador.
Cassador, yes.
Which is also in Eerie, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe there was a plot with like the Iriali Exodus and
Kaladin riding Kusikesh.
Yeah.
No. Awful.
Hey, Kaladin.
Surfing.
I do think, guys, I don't think Kaladin's going to get the space whales in the back half. Like, I don't know if that's possible anymore.
Everything's possible in the spiritual realm.
That is true. We can have a space whale Spren that we get as a shard and form it into a real space whale.
You know what? Someone will paint it. Commission it. Commission it, Argent.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Let me get on that.
That'll be the first thing
April
we do.
Fools! Do an April Fools Patreon art list.
Grace! Okay. Let's talk about some Aviar.
Burb.
Yes. This questioner asked, if an Aviar's connection or identity were to be manipulated in any way, would it change the abilities that it could grant? Yes. If you were to cook them and eat them, would it give somebody who could turn these calories into investiture any additional abilities? Unlikely.
I do find it weird that you can mess with an AVR in some capacity and change the ability they grant.
Well, I mean, that's like saying if you were a misting on Scadrial, could you manipulate the spirit web to grant another allomantic power? Sure. Like that's not that weird if you think about it that way. Like, sure. Yeah, of course.
I guess it's just like when the question, and no, maybe Brandon is just extrapolating, but like connection and identity don't feel like the kinds of things that you would tweak to achieve this effect.
I mean, what isn't connection and identity if you think about it?
I mean, I think this is just like trick it into thinking it's another species of bird. Like,
oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
that's what you would have to do, right? Because the different species of bird have different powers.
Yeah, but
so
that's
find a way to do that.
But that comes from the worms. It's the relationship between the worms and the bird.
It does come from the worms, yeah.
And so
the power comes from the
different species of Aviar. So they all eat the worms.
Yeah.
And different species of birds
manifest the powers.
Gain different powers that they can share with the trappers that they form something like the Nahel bond with.
Yeah. So I don't see what the problem with going like using connection and identity and spiritual mumbo jumbo shenanigans to go, you are a different bird that still ate the worm and get a different power.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah,
that feels like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I can accept it, but it does feel weird to me, and it opens the door to things like, well, if I'm a Night Radiant, can I manipulate my connection to be connected to a different type of Radiant Spren and be a different type of Radiant?
Well, that's a little different, I think. because the Spren
Yeah,
are sapient.
people have asked that before, I think.
Yeah, because the Spren are sapient. But this is like saying, could someone soul stamp them to be an Elantrian? And I was like, yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't think it would be like a super easy thing. Like, I think it would just be easier to get a different bird and make a new Aviar. Like
just thinking about forgery, like I can imagine forging a bird into a different bird.
Like less the connection than the identity part. The identity part I can absolutely see. No problem for me. Absolutely.
Spiritual stuff. Spiritual stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but I can certainly accept that. Like if this said, can you forge an Aviar to grant different abilities, I would not have thought twice about it.
They're being generic. It could be a bondsmith doing that too. It's fine.
Whatever.
It's fine.
It's interesting. I don't know if it's, wacky.
Yeah. So Shannon, let's talk about Shallan Spren.
Well, it's a theoretical question that Shallan's situation just raises.
Sure.
Another different question.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't read that far, so,
Questioner asks, Shallan has bonded to Spren. Is it possible for a Spren to bond two people? Brandon says, this is theoretically possible. I cannot fathom what that looks like, but it's so interesting. It looks like a mess, or it sounds like a mess.
I mean, no more than Shallan is, which is perhaps not saying much.
Sorry, the only thing I can think of is what
if
if
different things.
Adolin was a Spren, and so we get Adolin Blade, obviously.
Who gets the sword?
And so then
who gets the sword?
The thing is, you need to make like a schedule so that neither Radiant gets jealous of the other when getting the sword more often.
Yeah,
it's just relationship stuff.
Yeah, it's a throuple situation, and like Adolin could be the Spren to both Kaladin and Shallan. It works great.
The true form of Bladelin. It was not Maya.
No, Maya's great. Yeah. I don't know how that would work, but probably not great, but
maybe one you have one Radiant and then they're like in coma for years, and then like the Spren bonds someone else but wants to keep their old bond, and then the first person who was in a coma wakes up and like realizes their Spren has moved on and they have to navigate.
It's my new family. Oh no.
Oh no. I mean, I don't think it's that weird. It makes a lot of bonds are just connections between two people and like the intermingling of souls, right? There is or at least visually, that's how I imagine it, right? There's a simple way, which is there's a person, there's a Spren, and there's a line between them. And there's the more abstract idea, which is here's a soul, and the two kind of overlap a little bit. And it is that overlap that gives the person some of the Spren, which is the surges, and the Spren some of the person, which is sapiens in the physical realm, I guess. And I don't see why you can't have, a person has two hands. You can have, more like you can have one Spren intermingle with like them here, and another Spren that intermingles with them here, and it like I don't see why you can't have multiple.
No, that's what Brandon says. He says it's possible.
Yeah. It seems so intuitive that, sure, that makes sense. I guess in this example, I should have said a Spren has two hands, and so you can have the Spren, and then it's a people sandwich, not a Spren sandwich.
Sure. Yeah. The Spren. Yeah. Right. Of course. Yeah. I don't know why a Spren would do that. Like, I don't know if it's probably not an advantageous arrangement.
They probably don't get a whole bunch out of that. That they wouldn't get from a single bond.
It seems messy.
I am curious about like larger Spren, right? You can probably make some case for what's a good unmade here?
Automation.
Not Yelignar. Well, yeah, maybe Mishram. Like her situation is a little bit different.
You asked for what is a good unmade. I'm just saying.
Sure, fair. I did ask that.
Yes,
these were the words that I used. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, I can imagine the Spren of the caliber of like an unmade or one of the bondsmiths Spren. That seems easier for them for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Sibling multi-bonding would be sick, actually.
Yeah, multi-track drifting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Probably bad time to do it, before Mishram is freed. So, you probably don't want multiple people to try and kill you.
You get Omega Dead-Eyed.
You bond for humans.
What if they see it as like extra protection against becoming a Deadeyes?
That is possible, yeah.
What if only a Deadeyes all of them?
You break the bond and you only have like a one eye scratched out, but the other still works.
Yeah. A pirate.
Yar. Sorry, I'm just imagining what happened to Adonalsium was like a bond with 4 people who had the Dawnshards, and they're like, we renounce our oaths that broke Adonalsium. That's my model, actually.
At this point, that's just as interesting and likely an idea.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
This is once again only tangentially related, but I think back in either Oathbringer days or Rhythm of War days, but it may have been Oathbringer. It feels like Oathbringer to me. I posted a kind of a grand unified theory of the magics of Roshar on our forums, and my argument for void binding at the time was that it's essentially like a Nahel bond with odium. And so where in a normal Radiant bond, you would have the human and the Spren and their souls intermingle a little bit in the middle. You have something similar going on, but now it is a person and odium on the other side. And there's still a little bit of intermingling, like the person still gets some power. Odium probably doesn't get anything out of the deal. But if that is the case, then what is the shard of odium if not a really, really, really big Spren? And then that kind of opens up that possibility for, you have a bunch of people who have formed this Nahel bond with this giant, super, super, super Spren. And this kind of reminded me of that. I don't know if I still believe that void binding is, but
I don't know if
there's no evidence in the books.
Anything about void binding.
Well, I think some people believe very strongly about.
Who cares about void binding?
No one at this stage, because I just I don't know. Like, we'll figure it out at some point, I guess.
Don't be excited for anything.
You're never disappointed.
And you're never disappointed.
Yeah. Have terrible expectations and you're always pleased. That's
somehow they can always go lower. Just
they can sometimes.
Don't actually, you know what? Don't care about anything.
Yeah.
You see what happened to the people who cared about void binding? It's like you're the subject of a very sad Sarah McLachlan commercial.
We'll get it eventually.
Look at these poor people who cared about who thought we might get answers on what it is.
The void binding club doesn't think that we get void binding until back half. We're not dead or disappointed.
It's new information to me.
Yeah, no,
because you guys used to. Because we
thought that the people doing odium things were using void binding. I'm like, they're void binding, and Brand's like, no, they're surge binding. I'm like, what?
No,
what are you talking about?
Rhythm of War reset some people's expectations.
Oh, good, and it's my turn. How fortuitous! Hey,
you did this without access to fortune.
I was not paying attention in any way, shape, or form. Did breaking a bond damage a Spren before the Recreants? If so, was Ba Adamishram part of the natural healing process while being or before becoming unmade? Brandon, breaking a bond before the Recreants it hurt, but it was not long-term damaging hurt. Ba Adamishram would definitely consider that they could help, but whether they actually could or not is a matter you can dispute. So yeah, Brandon's talked how pre-Recreants, it wasn't like the Spren wouldn't die. So we've known that. I don't really know what this last sentence is talking about. Like, I'll be perfectly honest. What the hell's going on here? Actually,
Adonalsium is using they them pronouns.
I don't know if Brandon, like, she's pretty clearly female in the text, so I don't know how much Brandon is just like, I'm doing this as the default here.
I read this as if Autonomy saw a dead eye, and in a situation where like freeing her did not automatically kickstart the healing process like we see at the end of Win and Truth, she would think that she could fix them with her. Like, but Brandon is saying that is not, like, debatable whether or not that is true.
I guess it could also be, like, because freeing her doesn't automatically fix all of the dead eyes.
Yeah.
It allows them to heal. And so maybe Brandon is saying that Baromishram thinks that she can, like, individually heal individual dead eyes. So it's not just that her being free allows for healing, but she can, because we also recall, saw in one of the visions, great vision, by the way, Mishram was like walking a battlefield and healing singers.
Yeah, that was awesome, actually.
She couldn't heal humans, but she could heal singers. And so that's interesting.
Yes.
And possibly relevant in this case.
Yeah, I guess that's the only thing that makes sense. I wish we got more Autonomy in the book, guys.
We'll get more right next to Void Binding and the City of Lightning.
Howdy face.
It will be
Sad.
Baromishram in Kurth teaching Void Binding to people.
Hell yeah.
And they'll get there through a Diagonarthus Elfgate.
Yes.
Easy peasy. Easy peasy. Evgeni, talk about God medals.
Let's talk about God medals. Question. Or are we, at some point, right at the very end of the Cosmere or whatever, going to definitively know what all 16 God medals do? And Brandon says that he plans for us to be able to do so. Yes.
I need to reread Mistborn. All of that.
It might be good before Era 3, yeah, for sure. Like, honestly, for all of us, that might be a good call. Honestly,
so I don't know what this means.
I don't know what God medals do.
Well, I mean,
I guess we've seen
them,
like
so.
I guess we've seen Razium.
Yeah.
And like what Razium does is conduct investiture.
Yeah.
We've seen Larazium. What it does is it makes someone an Allomancer. So I guess like there are inherent properties to God medals that are independent of their properties in, say, the metallic arts. So like Larazium's allomantic ability, whatever that is like if you are already, I guess we know that if you are already an Allomancer, you burn the Larazium, you just become a stronger Allomancer,
Yes,
I think.
True.
Or a Mistborn, I should say.
Which is lame, but that's fine.
Yeah. Like these abilities are, I think, not what is being asked here.
Yeah.
Sure.
That said, I don't know what ATM's
We don't need to talk
inherent
about
ability.
we don't need to talk about pure ATM. We like absolutely do not need to talk about pure ATM.
I think Larazium might end up being the lamest of the God medals.
Yeah, it's super lame.
Answer, like, I'll be honest.
It's super lame, actually.
Isn't the
Conducts
idea
investiture.
they all conduct investiture? Maybe, possibly. Laras preservation.
Yeah.
So sit there and not be bad at stuff, like don't erode, kill entropy. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm not going to be satisfied unless we get every combination of God metal alloy. So 0 out of 10 rating to the
good luck
Cosmere.
there.
Yeah.
Oh God, I don't feel like I have a grasp on one God metal, and here he is, like all 16, and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot all the regular metals, and all the regular metals have allomancy and ferrochemy and hemalurgy, and I'm just
I want you to read
There's
a glossary before Space Age
There's
thing
hundreds of metal.
to read.
Give me a
all the
periodic
metals.
table.
Yeah. That needs to be. That's one of the end pages in Era 5. Actually, is just God metal tables.
Oh my god!
The book comes with one of those fold-out posters that are usually for maps, but it's actually just
Enemy. Enemy.
And then it's like I want what would Lauracium and Coravellium?
Let's go with Corium.
Sure, Corium.
Yeah.
Great. Cool.
That's good. That's better.
What does that alloy do, Brandon? He doesn't know. 0%.
I cannot think of 16 things cool enough to justify the name God Metal, let alone
True.
however many combinations there are.
True.
That's why I think they should be called shard metals, but that's not what happened in canon.
Well, what is a god?
If you think about it, what is? Let's get theological.
Yes, right. Cool, Grace. Let's talk about Taldane. Yeah.
This questioner says, there's a similarity between Sand Mastery using water out of someone's body, as well as the spores on, yes, intentional connection. Is it a Luhel bond? Let's just say that a certain shard in the Cosmere likes to mimic other magic systems. Have we seen said shard before? Yes, you have. I mean, it's clearly autonomy, right?
Yeah, that's got to be what that means, right?
Likes to mimic other magic systems.
So,
I mean,
is that meaning that autonomy is mimicking aethers with this? I guess with the Luhel bond and spores and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I've half joked before that, not on this podcast, but on Inking Out Loud, that white sand is like an investiture aether.
Well, I mean, there is that it's a 13th, but it's the fake aether or something, right?
Yeah, the
Investiture aether.
The bones.
Ether,
spores.
sorry.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've got, for autonomy stuff, we've got white sand doing aether things. We've got potentially Aviar doing Roshoran bond things, or just
that's an
generally
interesting
I don't know.
thought. Yeah.
And then we've got Trillium doing a metallic art things
Okay.
Trillium, sure. I see.
Yeah.
The Aviar stuff I'm not so sold on, just because Nihil bonds, if that is what the Aviar, but it seems so similar to Nihil bonds that it's virtually the same.
I mean, that doesn't. I mean, sure.
That does seem universal. Is what I mean.
Yeah.
Sure.
I guess you can make a similar argument for Luhel bonds are also universal.
I'm just saying, Evgeni, if on white sand, it's the lichen on the sand, and in the Aviar, it's the microorganisms that the birds eat. There's something there. There's a path.
Creating little beasties to to mimic other things.
Yeah, and then it's mimicking Nihil bond stuff or using that mechanics. Sure, good enough for me.
Maybe.
Trillium
certainly does seem to mimic the metallic arts pretty closely. Honestly, you seem to be able
a lot
to
more than the metallic arts. That's for sure.
You are accomplishing a lot of the same stuff with no downsides.
Mm-hmm.
And no real limitations, right? You can steal any attribute seemingly. I guess we haven't seen anyone try to burn Trillium.
Wild. Good thing there's no Mistborn, I guess.
No, there's one. Two.
Anyway, it's obvious that the implication here is autonomy, right? It has to be.
Yeah.
Obviously.
There's an ironic thing about autonomy, mimicking.
Stealing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's just the fun kind of contradiction in autonomy and its vessel and stuff, which we got into it a bit in Lost Metal, where it's yes, do your own independent thing as long as that's what my plan is, because mine's the important one. My plan is to steal other people's plans, actually. Okay.
Love to know more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt we will in White Sand Pro. but maybe we'll see.
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little bit.
Because a prose rewrite is a good opportunity to flesh out the world building a little bit more.
Yeah, but Brandon said it's just going to be getting in aligned with a graphic novel canon. So it's like,
but you're not
be that exciting.
You wouldn't be contradicting the canon. You could say things about, the past of, the Kurtzians and the Karla, and
yes,
you can have additional context without breaking canon.
I'm glad we got to White Sand in here. I think that's good. I think that's good for the show. Shannon, why don't you end us up with some bones?
Bone
zone.
Yes.
All right. If a Kandra ate the bones of a child, could they eat other bones and grow up as that person?
God.
Brandon says they could, but they wouldn't actually be the person. So you could imagine a Kandra doing that. It would probably not be psychologically good for anyone involved. But that's totally within the realm of what a Kandra might do. In fact, there's probably Kandra who have done that. Let's sit on this one for a bit, because the last one is one of them. Shalon, Raffo, silly.
I think that's the end of the one, actually.
Yeah, that's the end of the one.
I can imagine, at some point during Era 1 Mistborn, Era Noble, your heir dies, right? And so you hire a Kandra to be the heir and grow up for a while and find another random boy that matches enough to pass off as the heir, and slowly the Kandra matures to match the new appearance, and then you swap them out again.
That's probably the most plausible situation. Man, Era 1's dark.
Or you keep up this, I cannot decide between facade and charade. Wow. Or you just keep, yeah, sure. You keep up this ruse until you get a new heir.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, but I feel like that's
a tragic hunting accident.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's safer for not needing to bring a new person in, but it's just more expensive, so you have to have a lot of medium. I mean, we're debating what is the best way to pretend to have a child still.
It makes sense that the answer is this, right? Because when a Kandra eats someone for their bones, they do so that they can replicate the body and the musculature and the skeletal structure and all of that stuff. They don't absorb the person's mind in that way.
Yeah.
And so by eating a child, you get the ability to shapeshift into that child. But the imitation that we see from Lord Renault, that comes from interrogation and studying and all of that stuff, which is not inherent to the consumption.
Yeah.
It's for me, the psychological health aspect of this is Kandra maybe trying to experience growing up in a way that they never do. That seems really psychologically messed up, trying to have a kind of experience. There's a biological experience of growing up.
I think it would just be very difficult for them.
I think it would be difficult to maintain the original face and try and get that to keep going, because you're trying to imagine all you're doing is sorting body parts all the time, as trying to transition this, and it's I'm going to pretend to be a 5-year-old, okay, and now I sort of need to find a 6-year-old. The pretense of going through all of these stages, it's very much if you ever saw a Kandra who did this, why would you do that? Is the first question I think you ask. What do you get out of this? I think they're probably very messed up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's also probably extra difficult for them because Kandra don't really have childhoods. They at some point.
Exactly. This is an experience they don't have, and they're imitating or trying, or maybe trying to experience. So it's there's probably Kandra who have done that. Was it just for business reasons, or was it Are you being weird about it, man?
It's just
I love the Kandra being weird about things now, but I'm like,
good.
since being freed, I think they're getting so weird, and I've loved every one of these unbonded Kandra now. But I'm like, sometimes it's like that also opens the door to maybe looking at what a Kandra is doing and going like, are you sure, man? Are you all right? This
I don't know. It's kind of messed up that you're like an 800-year-old eldritch monster and you're cosplaying as a 5-year-old. Like, that's odd.
I mean, I will say, if you say, "Oh, I'm 800 years old and I'm cosplaying as a 15-year-old," I'm like, I mean, the age differentials. I mean, I'm just saying numerically, there's a large difference, and they're all
sure, yeah, it probably 800 is probably as bad as 80 is probably as bad as 40 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not the age, the absolute value of the age difference as much as it is the mental, the difference in mental age.
Yeah, it's like have a Kandra. It's like cry like a baby. Go. It's like, God, that's horrifying.
Just like, listen, question asker. This is so cursed. I respect your.
Please write some fanfic. Actually,
this is a great. I respect your game.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Good. It's good. I like this. Well, we are caught up on mobs. Well, except if there were mobs before FanX, which I did not check in any way. Whatever. Don't care. It's probably fine. There were no spoiler streams.
I mean, technically, most boring book ever was before FanX.
Well, I got that too, so.
Yeah.
No, but then the last one was C2A2, so yeah, I haven't missed anything. I
mean, I guess maybe stuff on Reddit could have been.
Well, I didn't check those, so we are going to be
quick scroll.
Done with mobs, and so I think we are going to go to Who's That Cosmere Character?
This character is from Roshar.
Menace. Tien.
Taln.
Braze.
Void in drag on a horse.
It's time for Who's That Cosmere Character?
All right, listeners, you know how the game is played. You send an email to wtcc@17start.com with 5 clues and the character those clues correspond to. I read each one aloud, and after each clue, our panelists have the chance to guess who's that Cosmere character. Let's begin. All right, this one was sent in by Sigma Edge Dancer.
Okay.
And I'm going to read them in a slightly different order because I think it'll be better for everyone that way.
Okay. All right.
Clue 1. This character is a noble.
Strathventure.
It is not Strathventure.
Justice Lecal.
It is not Justice Lecal.
Wax.
It is not Wax. Clue 2. This character is not from Scadrial.
Curses. Completely bamboozled.
Well, time to go to Roshar, baby.
This is what I changed because not from Scadrial was originally first, and I'm like, that's dumb. I'm going to do the noble and not from Scadrial.
Okay,
just bait some answers out of us.
You gotta bait them. I'm going to go with Duchess Chrysala.
It is not Duchess Chrysala.
Oh, no.
Roshar's too obvious, you know? Probably Roshar. Oh, it could be Aurelish nobility though.
Yeah, I'm thinking Elantris.
Could be Ridger though, if you think about it. It's possible.
Is unknowable. Serene. Why not?
He's not Serene.
King Iadon.
And it's not King Iadon.
Almost thought you were going to say King Idris.
Clue 3. This character likes to be colorful.
Siri.
It is not Siri.
I was thinking about Siri before.
I saw the bait and I was like, I will trump down on that bait.
I love chomping
worm.
down on the bait. I love chomping down on the bait. Likes to be colorful.
That's a very difficult clue that I can't guess Ridger for, or King Idris, which is very annoying.
It is very unfortunate, yeah.
And I'm like, would you consider the gods and the court of gods wants to be
nobility. Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
Think about it.
I
But, like, they're all
probably
colorful.
wouldn't,
And like
I
the High
think-
Princes all have their own colors, but that doesn't mean they like to be colorful. Right?
unless explicitly
yeah.
mentioned.
You know?
Yes. But no, I would probably say the Return of the Court of Gods are not nobility.
No bit
Kind of higher level. Yeah. I'm gonna go with Evie. Balnars.
It's not Evie.
Curses. Just like thinking,
This is tricky.
yeah.
Noble, not from schedule, likes to be colorful.
Not from schedule is very helpful though.
It is very helpful information.
Which of the Aurelish nobility were colorful? I don't remember.
I'm trying to think if Roshar could fit.
Oh, it's not Aurelish though. It's Aureline.
It is Aeroline now. Yep.
Yeah, they changed it.
Oh,
back in
It's-
2005, it was.
It is, I think, Tio instead of
how long it's
Tio-ish.
been.
yeah.
Oh God, let me just guess somebody. I can't think of anyone. Siri, Evie.
You could always guess
Serini,
Toe, Evie's brother.
Since when does he like color?
I don't know. I don't
This one
know.
does Evie.
Can you think of anyone
I'll
else
say-
who likes color?
Adolin.
It is not Adolin.
Okay.
Clue 4. This
It's
character
stylish.
becomes invested.
Oh, great. That's helpful.
Mhm.
Super helpful.
Believe yourself.
Yeah, I will.
Just
I mean,
spoil it.
that does limit the Elantris guesses severely.
Becomes invested. Likes to be colorful. I'll just say Raoden and get it out of the way because he's a
It is not Raoden.
He is shiny.
he is shiny. It's not even bait. That was just you fit one or two of these.
I'm just gonna go with Shuden. I don't know, man.
It is not Shuden.
I guess let's do Vivenna.
It is not Vivenna. Clue 5. This character is confronted by a point of view character.
Well, that
Does
doesn't
not really
help.
narrow it down here.
Is confronted by.
So what? We got
Becomes
Noble, not from Scadrial.
Comes
Wolves 3 and
invested.
4 becomes invested. Wolves 3,
Is it Amaram?
Colorful.
colorful. Oh
It
my
is not
God.
Amaram.
Oh, I don't know about colorful, but I'm like, he does eat a gem.
Let's go with Elkar.
It is not Elokar.
And it's not even a
Uh,
main character; it's a POV character.
Yeah.
Invested. Okay, come on, Elantris. Let's go.
I don't think it's Elantris, man.
It could be though. It could
It
be.
could-
It's only mostly like Raoden and Shuden who exhibit investiture in there, and Galadon, but Galadon's not.
Okay, so is there Noble? Let's go with Emperor Ashravan.
It is not Emperor
Damn
Ashravan.
it.
It was Aesudan Colin.
Oh!
I had the
Oh.
right idea with Amaram.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's pretty good though.
I guess.
She likes
Apparently
color.
wears lots of. She apparently wears lots of colorful gemstones in her hair to stand out.
Okay, well, I don't know if
Like-
that's necessarily like.
Likes to
Yeah.
be colorful.
Yeah.
That's just.
I mean, at least that's what I did not do a full depth. I just glanced at the wiki article and that's what it said. But like,
Yeah.
maybe she is described as liking color in other places.
What is going
That's,
on with
like,
Aesudan? We're never getting answers on her.
No,
ever.
she's dead. She's irrelevant.
She was so cool. But then she like talked for a bit cryptically, and it's like, what is she talking about? I
Yeah,
don't
she
know.
was cool until she opened her mouth.
No, but it was interesting. Whatever. Aesudan's such a cool name, though. Like that's such
That's
a
a
cool
cool-
name.
What
One of
cool
the
things
best
going on
names,
there.
I think. Yeah.
Cooler than Shmone.
I have to massage that one to make it work in my head. Shmone? Shmone.
Yeah.
Shmon.
Shamoni.
Well,
Shamonini.
it's supposed to be like Hebrew, right? I don't know.
That's my assumption,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know Hebrew well enough to. In fact, I know very little. In fact.
But also you have Fantasy Gareth, which is It's
Gareth isn't that far
one
from
of the
fantasy
one of
names
the
anyway.
vowels has been swapped out.
Yeah. All right. Now we're gonna do one from our Who's That Cosmic Character priority queue, which you can submit to if you're a Herald on Patreon. But if you're not a Herald on Patreon, you can still support our Patreon for as little as $1 a month. We have art polls, doing a lot of Wind and Truth commissions.
So much Wind and Truth.
What's happening because we have a huge spreadsheet of Wind and Truth things. And
like 4 pages of ideas.
Yep. So this one is sent in by Greyhive. And the first clue is I am dead. Sorry to hear that.
I
Greyhive.
am dead.
Should have picked someone else's then.
Well, in the spiritual realm, they can send us Who's That Cosmic Character clues anyway.
Through connection.
Yeah.
Gavilar.
Hmm?
Let me hear. Gavilar.
It's not Gavilar.
Ox.
It's not Ox. I like that. That's good.
Only most.
I'm trying to think of which characters have said I am dead. But I think it's like Honors of Visions and Ox are the 2 I can think of.
Okay.
All right, well, let's go with Tanavast.
Not Tanavast. Clue 2. I taught a main character an important skill.
What?
Dandos the Oil Sworn.
Evgeni, you're correct, dude. You nailed it.
That's the guy. I was like,
Hail Mary.
I can't even believe it.
the guess that pops back. That's good. That's
Amazing.
really good.
Oh, incredible.
that was pretty tight. Amazing. Oh, well, I guess we're not going to need the bonus clue.
Bonus clues only if we don't get there.
That's right.
Skill issue.
Clue 3, a herald has destroyed something I created.
Ooh, that's a good clue.
Clue 4, I died 300 years before Cabsel. Remember when Cabsel was on the Stormlight nav box? It's like, yeah.
Remember
sick
when
guess.
we removed him
Sick
after
guess.
Oathbringer's release?
Yeah, it's like, okay, I don't think he's going to come up again. Sean doesn't think about Cabsel very much here. All right.
No.
And then clue 5, my book is in the Devar family library.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and it is Dandos Soil, so I can't believe that, Evgeni. That's ridiculous.
Dan DeSantos.
Yep, and that was the extra clue. This character was named for Dandos Santos.
Well, we don't need that here.
Yeah, no, you don't. You do not need that. That was incredible. I can't believe it. But I appreciate. You're doing your best to keep the episodes shorter. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, we gotta get
Or this community.
Yeah. How foolish of me for picking that one.
Foolish of me.
Yes,
you fool.
You fool. Well, you can find us on 17shard.com for all news, discussion, theories, and fun that you could ever want. Join our Discord. We got stuff. A lot of stuff.
A lot of people.
Maybe
and they
that's
just
not
will
appealing.
Not stop talking just all the time.
Yes. You can chat with us also in the Shardcast channel if you would like to do so. And we have some social medias that we don't post to, so that's cool. And we have
accurate.
We have a store. If you want to buy merch, it's in the description. Boom. Yeah, he's wearing a hoodie. How do you like the hoodie?
I quite like it.
Yeah.
It is not too thin, it is not too thick. It's a nice hoodie.
Nice.
And
hell yeah.
It has pockets that you can put your hands in or other things.
I mean, yeah, for sure. That's And yeah, you can support our Patreon for as little as $1 a month. I suppose you can also, give us a super thanks in the YouTube comments. You can. Do that.
Have we enabled that?
Oh, we've enabled that for
it's
forever.
It's channel memberships that we don't have.
Yeah, we don't have channel memberships because posting to 2 places is hard. So we just do Patreon. But see, you can do that too if you like our stuff. I have no idea what the next episode's going to be, so we'll find that out later. So.
Much like Hoyd, we will show up at a recording because we know that we are supposed to, and It will happen.
To be fair, there is some truth to that. It's just like, just show up to the recording. We'll figure out the outline there. It'll be fine. We'll just go. It'll be fine. Cool. Well, we'll see you all next time.
Ta-ta.
Bye.
Ka.